Welcome back, everyone. It is Reap the Harvest live. I am Pat Hilton here with Matt Tack in the zone. And we were talking about all kinds of, the world is a crazy place, folks. We got the election coming up. I believe it's under 50 days away. And we were talking about the social dilemma last time a little bit, which I need to watch it, but I use social media for a living, so I kind of understand what they're explaining to people. I kind of already know a little bit.
Because FaceTime, or not your FaceTime, but what is your screen time on your phone?
It's got to be bad. It's got to be really, really high. I'm not even going to look. I don't even care because it's working and I'm happy. But I know we were talking about the left versus right now, Biden versus Trump. And I've started to use certain types of topics in my personal content because I know it's going to get views.
I've seen that.
If I make a skit and I joke around and I rip on Joe Biden, it gets 50,000 views. And I would say 29 to 30% of those viewers hate me for it because they like Joe Biden. And then I'll make fun of Donald Trump. And, then it's the other side. They're like, oh, dude, I thought you were a Trumper, bro. Now you're making fun of Donald Trump. And I'm like, dude, it's just content. Like, I'm just having a good time. If you're going to cut it one way, you got to cut it the other way. There's gaffes all over the place. I mean, this is like, if they came up with a musical genre for these two candidates, it'd be called like gaff core. Like gaff core dance mixing. But like you were saying, social media latches on to those tags and all that stuff, and then they pit everybody against each other.
That's 100%. I mean, that's the social dilemma. That's why media, never before in our history, right, has spread as quickly as it does. So now we're at a pace at which, the claim, whether they be true or false, claims of like the coronavirus, of political news or whatever it might be, it's like literally minutes that things are compounded. It's not where, okay, somebody puts like a news briefing out or an editorial on something and then it goes viral, maybe even 6 months later. It's like news content is perpetuated at like an unreal speed. So even if it's true or false, there's no narrative that is willing to establish whether it's true or false, right? And the artificial intelligence behind social media, it's insanely smart because it's able to dictate our behaviors on what we click on, but it's not able to establish the human emotion of where we're able to articulate, oh, this is truth or this is false, right? And so everything becomes true in the eyes of the eyes of the beholder. And what's really crazy about this whole thing is that it's exactly that. It's creating these chasms of, because I'd established myself as like CNN is my news source and that's my social bias. Well, all my click footprints within social media gravitate towards one side. And then now on Red, Fox News is my narrative of what I describe as truth. All my click funnels within social media is gravitated towards Red, right? And now you're creating news outlets just that are growing in like insanely fast pace.
And you're just getting bombarded with it constantly too. So then you start to see on either side, like, yeah, I thought that was great. So like I went to CNN to get a video of a guy standing in front of like some fire and say that it was mostly peaceful. And then I went over to Fox to get some other clip from whatever. So now I get hit with like both sides. I think that's almost even worse because now both sides are annoying me because like I'm always on it. So like, now and then Trevor Noah's thing shows up and that's kind of funny. So I want to take a clip from that. And then, righty tighty over here, Ben Shapiro says something and I want to take something from that. So because I'm constantly clicking on both sides because I want to like make comedy or I want to make a song or whatever I want to make. Now I'm getting hit with both ends of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's worse, just seeing one thing all the time or constantly seeing it all.
Well, if you listen to one thing I really enjoy about Ed Milet, and this is one thing that he'll tell, like in self development, right? I'm just a self development nut, right? I like the diversification of things, and I think that's imperative, honestly, to what you're doing, because there has to be a separation. Well, not really a separation, but there has to be a blend of
right
both sides, because you're creating a social bias, and this is I repeat this all the time, but this is the reticular activating system, right? What you feed yourself continually is what you ultimately believe. And if you're only feeding yourself the narrative that one side and only one side is correct, then I'm going to hate the other, right? And that's what's creating this level of hate. And as the chasm builds, it's like, okay, when are we ever going to get together? So going back to the social dilemma, it's a lot of these people think, like, literally I know this is like kind of crazy to even think about, but like the end of civilization could come about.
Yeah, if I was gonna say, I almost know where you're going. Yeah,
because we are just creating like no, this is right, no, this is right, and
it's
then there's
it's
like
causing a rift. It's just like any relationship that went bad. I was talking about this the other day on another interview I was on. Was when I look back now and I think about things that I maybe considered L's or like losses back in the day, those rifts and those breaks and those cracks were actually not losses, because they didn't stop me from being successful. Now, I was not defeated by those situations.
Yeah.
But what we're looking at here is it's such a me versus you. What was the analogy? And I think Ed Milet might have posted this on his page or somebody like that. You can't shake hands with a closed fist.
Yeah, dude, how good is that?
You can't shake hands with a closed fist. And I've made that mistake in the past too. Some of those things I considered, L's or whatever, people walked away from me, or business people or relationships I was in, or acoustic gigs I was playing. I couldn't come to an agreement with the person to make it work, because myself and that person were unable to find a communication line and draw up some kind of common, like you said, blend to make everything kind of go together. And I think that's what we're seeing here, and it's getting dangerous.
Dude, it's getting so dangerous, but I mean, it comes down to like it's like the extreme social bias, right? And this has now become like the racial diversion that we have right now is because, and I was actually talking with a family member about this today. It's like the racial diversion exists because we don't want to see middle ground, right? No, I'm going to take an extreme left and I'm going to take an extreme right. It's like, okay, when can we create that level of like blend where, hey, we realize there's people have been wronged, a level of empathy needs to come into play, and how can, where does change come about?
Right.
And we were describing, so I was describing how, there's political discourse. The political discourse that happens within, the United States, right, is that we send people to school. What does school teach us? To get jobs, right? So we send politicians to become politicians to essentially get a job. And so I'm going to go be a political science major, and I'm going to get a job. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to then be able to make decisions for like my local economy that's going to, or a federal economy that's going to actually impact and make change. Now, this is where things really comes to a crux, is that now you're taking in a political sphere, right, where law has not and is like so backdated. Law is like 40, 50, 60 years behind, right? Mm. So that's why we haven't even caught up to the times of technology, because we can't regulate technology when the government can't catch up with laws to even understand the premise of like how technology is moving at such a fast pace.
Right.
But this is where things come into play, and this is just kind of a good, I guess, a good more so analogy, is that this is the exact reason why like our current bureaucracy, like there's so much discourse and dysfunction. Right now, Tampa wants to put a major expressway down the middle of I-275, right? Pat, let me ask you a question. Guess how old those plans are? That they're making a decision, right? I'm putting an expressway down the middle of I-275, a toll road, which is so antiquated, right? Tolls are antiquated. You never pay off a highway system with tolls. How old do you think that those plans that they're making a decision off of? Just give me just a random. How old in years?
18 years.
30. They're 30-year-old.
I was gonna say 20, right? But I didn't think it was that old.
They're making a decision today on plans that were created when somebody, like, it was probably a 50-year-old, 40-year-old engineer who's now 70, that now the new engineers that are coming in and they're saying, hey, we want to put a $9 billion toll road down the middle of I-275, and we want to call them luxury lanes. The stupidest, it literally doesn't make sense, but that's law. So they're literally, our politicians are making decisions on stuff like that's 30, 40, 50 years old. It's like
they couldn't think anything else to help everybody out with 10
billion. I'm pretty sure, I swear to you, I promise you, I'm pretty sure that the US government has changed from DOS to Windows-based systems like within the past 15 years. So, I mean, that's how, legitimately how old and antiquated.
Well, and look at the DMV.
It's unreal, right? It's
prime example of government failure. You guys haven't figured out an easier way to do this by now.
How to automate it. But I mean, this once again comes down to you're expecting.
Those 3 letters just give me a headache.
Dude, there's a guy. So Bill Gross, which. Dude, I wish this dude would run for president. He's a phenomenal mind. So Bill Gross started this thing called Idea Lab, which essentially is it's one of the first think tanks that ever existed, right? And he's the unknown, godfather of unicorn companies, because Elon Musk is nothing to this dude. He's created 7 unicorn companies. One of them was called Paradigm. He actually, I think I might be wrong on that name, so don't quote me. But it's Google Photos now is what it is. He sold to Google's, but he's created 7 unicorn companies. His name Bill Gross. So, anyways, this dude, if you had a guy like that, he's gonna change the world, right? He becomes president, he's gonna change the world. But kind of going back full circle is we need more kind of a blended approach. We need more outside the box thinkers to come in to create law, because we can't expect politicians to create law. It's a Neanderthal approach to our system. We need new thinkers where it isn't going to be, my mom always says, chase the money trail. That's where you're going to find, whether it's going to be in the, the spiritual realm, the churches, they're full of political crap. And then, you're talking about the federal government. It's chase the money trail. All these politicians, the people that are getting by is the people that are willing to slip a few bucks, and then that law gets passed. So if you guys another 2 documentaries that need to be watched by everyone across the board is the 13th, right? That's on Netflix. 13th. That's an amendment based on the 13th Amendment, and then the social. Media is here. This
guy's got some great comments.
Dude, this guy's phenomenal. He's a barber back in Detroit, Pat Gibbons. But that's right, man. We got to come together. So, but literally, this is the way. Follow the money trail. People slip in, and that's how law gets created, right? There's an organization out there called ALEC that their job is specifically to create law for Fortune 500 companies, where they will pay lobbyists to go in and literally it's standardized templates that whoever pays the most basically gets law. So now you have, and one of the things going back, I mean, I'm going all over the place, but this is all going to come merge together.
It all connects anyway. Yeah, it all connects.
President Trump, which I congratulate him obviously on this. That's the one thing I love about Ed Milet. Is that going back to Ed Milet is that he creates 2 different viewpoints whenever he comes into play. So he'll bring ultra right and then ultra left into play so that you can create your own definition of okay, what is my social bias going to be and how can I merge those two together? But prison reform is huge. I don't care. Honestly, I could care less about the hot button issues. They're talking about pro-life, pro-choice. Like no one has ever changed that. And stuff like those are just, you're just trying to get one vote or the other. It's a hot button item. How about we talk about education and prison reform? Because those are the two things that need to be established to create real change, right? When you talk about pro-life, pro-choice, it's like, no, it's such a low percentage figure that it's a non-issue. We need to talk about with like hot ticket items, prison reform. Yeah, it's not sexy, but let's talk about it because that's a big thing, right? How about we talk about education?
Follow the money on prisons too. That there's a place to follow the money on.
Dude, it's insane. It's insane. I could have like
holy cow. That's like we could pull graphs on that and it would be unfreaking believable.
Unreal, dude. But I mean, being kind of funny about this whole thing, we talked about, it's actually not spelled that way. It's called Degeneration X. But some of the best childhood memories I had. Oh
yeah, it is. It's just a D. I forgot.
The best childhood memories I had is when freaking Triple H came together. Shawn Michaels came together.
So good.
And dude, it changed over the WWE. So
it is.
Was it Goldberg? I'm pretty sure he was in it too. But how about
Goldberg was in WCW. He showed up later, but he may have butted heads with those guys at one time. What happened was DX, I changed it on the screen. DX showed up outside the WCW arena. Remember? Yeah. And they were like making fun of WCW because they had the Monday Night Wars. But that's kind of what we're dealing with right now with the Democrats versus the Republicans. It's like WCW versus WWF. I literally feel like, and like I said, I have certain people on my page, like I said, and they rip on Trump all day. And then I got other people on my page and they rip on Biden all day. So all day. I see one or the other, one or the other. And I think both things are funny. Like there was, I mean, in a sick way, some of it I think is funny, but especially like when they draw like a cartoon Trump and like they put a red hat on him and his red tie. I'm like, all right, well, I can barely even draw a stick figure. So this is pretty funny, but it's just like, I think some people get so angered by that. Yeah. I'm not emotionally attached to either guy. No. So it doesn't really bother me that much. I just think it's funny.
Yeah. So, hey, so I listen to a really, really cool podcast and I want to describe this to somebody because everyone's got to listen to it. So John Maxwell and this guy, Alan Mulally. Alan Mulally is the ex-CEO of Ford Motor Company, but I thought it was really cool. He's a phenomenal mind. But what I thought was really cool is that this guy went against the grain and he thought it was like an obstacle that was like so big. I couldn't even comprehend when you hear a $17 billion deficit, like what do you mean you aren't going to go into bankruptcy? But I thought it was really cool because Alan Mulally single-handedly changed around the Ford Motor Company and never took federal bailout money. And I thought it was really cool on as we go through these obstacles, there's even we're talking about politics here, right? I want to talk about 3 different topics, and then I want to talk about Alan Mulally real quick, just kind of give the general idea of what I heard in this podcast. But 3 things that I think we need to focus on in this upcoming election, and then right or left, it doesn't matter. But I think 3 things that need to be focused on is number 1, and most important to me, is education reform. I think education reform needs to be absolutely the most highly focused item. Prison reform is like pretty much the second in the line. Prison reform is so needed, I think that's just a really, really important thing to really take a look at. And then what was the other one? I named 3 of them off.
Education, prison, and healthcare.
No, it wasn't healthcare. Healthcare is really, but. Anyways, I might think of it in a minute.
Healthcare is one of those things that's always going to need reform, I feel like.
Social reform. Social regulation. I'm sorry. Social regulation was that 3rd. Those are things that 100%, no matter the candidate, whether you look left or right, Social regulation is the third one. Absolutely. There are we are now into a generation, right? I have 3 girls. We are now into an era where our children are not going to live without anything but social. They only know social, right? So
Right.
their idea of celebrity right now are influencers. It's not any LeBron James. Yeah, he's a cool dude, but I'd rather meet this person. You know what I mean? I'd rather meet I certainly would rather meet Ed Milet than LeBron James. I love LeBron James, but
yeah, I think he's an incredible performer and an incredible athlete and a hard ass worker. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. But I'll still make fun of him for being a baby sometimes.
But he's single-handedly changing educational reform. LeBron James is doing his job. That's amazing. So
he doesn't get enough credit for certain things he does. I totally agree.
Those 3 things are the 3 hot ticket items for me. I would establish your own criteria, but for me, without a doubt, 100% is number 1. The focus is going to be education. Education. How are we? The education reform is absolutely, without a doubt, 100% most important to me. And how are we educating our younger, who are building up the generation, right? How are we educating them? Prison reform, that it is awful. If you watch the 13th, you'll see it single-handedly what they're doing in the prison systems right now. It's basically slavery is what they're it's legalized slavery. And the third is going to be social regulation. So we need to take a look at those 3 things. So that's politically. But
so who do you think? So let's go back then. If you want to get real nitty gritty, who do you think education reform, prison reform, and social regulation, out of the candidates that we have, supports those being the way they need to be?
Yeah, so it's tough for me right now, honestly, and I'm looking more towards local politics than I am for federal. So I look.
I think that the presidency, the presidency gets a lot of hoopla, but the local stuff that we've noticed, especially with COVID, with local people being in charge of making decisions, governors, districts, and counties, and all this stuff. One county's open, the other one isn't, and all that stuff. Dude, people got to start thinking about all that kind of stuff. I never thought about this stuff until I was a parent. I didn't even care.
Oh my gosh.
Never thought about it at all.
The amount of growth that's happened since I've become a parent is insane. Literally from 30 to 35, I've had this explosion of just, I want to learn everything because I want to be well-rounded in my social bias.
That's part of the reason why we eventually California failed for us, because you look at those 3 things you listed, education in California. I mean, they're doing certain things we don't personally vibe with, know, and if call me judgmental, or maybe I'm a righty tighty in a lot of ways. I'm a lefty loosey in a lot of ways. We've laughed about that on the phone, which makes it hard for someone like me because I'm a critical thinker. So I try to look at it from a 360 model. Okay, well, I don't want to just be way over here. Let's look at it where they're coming from over here. Maybe I can find my way 50%, because like I said, I don't like to just walk away from anyone else's viewpoint. And that's why I keep so many friends from so many different circles, so that I can constantly see how other people think and kind of integrate that into my brain. But dude, education, the prison system in California is a major scam.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane.
And so you look at who was one of the leaders in making it that way. It was Kamala Harris. You know what I mean? I'm just going down the line with it. So that's something to think about for people. That doesn't mean it's a zero factor on that side. But and then you could say the same thing about Trump in 20 million different ways either. Look at some of the people, he's taken some donations from some people that I'm not a huge fan of. I'm just throwing it out there. So if I'm going to take a shot over here, I got to take a shot over here. I don't agree with, don't take those people's money, dude.
Yeah.
They're extreme hate groups.
That's tough.
I'll just leave it at that. And so I don't agree with that. But that's where it comes in, is this is a problem. The left versus right, Democrat versus Republican thing is a problem because no one ever talks about the third party candidates either.
Yeah.
The third party candidates get no love, bro.
Well, it's tough.
And I've voted third party before in the past.
I know. And honestly, like,
that's why I say, like, it would take us forever to go down the line on Biden versus Trump. Biden voted for the, speaking of prison reform, voted for the crime bill in '94 with Bill Clinton that incarcerated tons of blacks.
Yeah.
That's I'm not into that. And then we could pull the plug on 10 different things on Trump too.
But
that I don't like.
You're also talking about, again, a politician who, like, a lot of these guys, literally all they do is go in and sign their name on a bill. They have no idea what a lot of times they're
right.
educated on the bill. They're just going in because, again, you look at ALEC. ALEC is an organization that had already bills printed out and said, hey, we'll slip you a couple bucks. You put your name on this bill and you'll be all right. Right. And so that's exactly how, the political arena is ran. It's so messed up. It honestly is. It's crazy.
And then the career, really? Like you said too earlier, these people turn it into a career. It should be a public service. You're supposed to be serving Matt and Pat, and you're turning this into a career off our tax-paying dollars.
Yep.
Is essentially what you're doing. You look at some of these top dogs on both ends again, and they're married to like hedge fund owners. And like when somebody drops out of like a CEO spot, they like sell all their stock like 3 days before it happens and get these major kickbacks from the stock dropping because they sold it when it was high. That happens all the time. And then they're able to say, oh, well, we have these people that manage our stock. So there's no, what would you call there's no conflict of interest here.
Yeah.
And it's like, listen, dude, I mean, you guys are throwing me lobs when it comes to making a comedy skit about this.
Yeah,
so
Florida right there for you, Governor.
We could dive deep on both ends and find that kind of stuff on each side of the aisle for this election. And like I've cracked jokes before, like Trump came in, he wasn't even a political person and was able to win.
Yep.
So what happens to the two-party system moving forward? I mean, I don't know.
Honestly,
does it ever go away?
This is the craziest thing. And I'm definitely
That's where I'm going with it.
I'm not right or left. Like I literally kind of fall right, it kind of square in the middle as apolitical. I just like educating myself on various matters. But dude, President Trump is left. Like, I don't even care what you say. He's blue running in a red party. That's all he is. And like it's just insane. It's mind-boggling. It literally, if you put President Trump in the left bucket there, the Democratic seat, Democrats just automatic, they're gonna love him, right? And then you put Biden in the right seat, everyone's just gonna love him. No one's educated enough to be like, oh, okay. All they do is look at color, and I'm going to gravitate towards color. That's it. That's what I've been told, right? I've been told that. It's
so weird, isn't it?
That's all it is. Like, it doesn't matter if you switch the candidates right now. People, all right, I'm just going to go.
It's funny you bring that up, too, because there was some woman who ran as a joke in some area. I don't know what party she ran in, but she did it as like a social experiment. She's like a Satanist, anarchist, whatever she is. Cool. Good for her. And, like ran whatever. And everybody voted for her because I guess that's the way people vote in that area. And she's like, I just wrote my name down. Like no one was even trying to get this gig. Like, this is why you guys are getting the cards that you're getting dealt. So don't complain about it if you're not willing to run and change it. The woman's got a point.
Yeah.
And it's like what we were talking about before. Like, I wasn't really looking for any information, so I didn't find any information until I started looking for it. When I was parent, and I'm like, well, I don't want this, and I don't want that, and I don't want the other thing. Where am I going to go that provides me a different thing? Like the taxes, for instance. California's 13 point whatever percent for self-employed. Texas, it's 0. And the self-employment is like one of the lowest in the country. State tax 0, income tax one of the lowest. California highest in like every category.
Yeah.
But I didn't care. I just wanted to live by the beach and be a rock star, man. But once I did care and I looked at the information, I'm like, what are you doing? So it's not just like you said, there's so many issues at play here, and it's different for everybody.
100%, man, 100%. But I did want to touch on Alan Mulally because I'm like, dude,
hit it.
It's amazing because it like put kind of things in perspective that number one, things can change no matter how grim the scenario is. And this is, I want to end with like kind of the level of hope, right? Because I believe that, that America is one of the most amazing countries we live in. It's a land of prosperity that we can, we have the ability to produce whatever we want, man. I mean, it's just really amazing. So, but this guy, right? So Al Mulally was actually, for 30 years, he was actually the CEO of Boeing. And
good old St. Louis company there, baby.
Beautiful. So he actually was with Boeing in the creation. He was the CEO, I think, for, don't quote me on this, but I think it was north of between 15 to 20 years, but he worked for them, I think, for over 30 years. But he was part of the 737, the 747, the 750.
Yeah, because they used to be called McDonnell Douglas, and then they became Boeing.
Boeing, when it was bought out.
There was like a merge, yeah.
He ended with the 777. He then, when he actually left for Ford, he was actually going to recreate the 737, but then actually got an opportunity. Ford recruited him. So Ford brought him up. It's a really cool story and dynamic, but Ford brought him up, and this is how much of disarray the automotive industry was. It was a dying industry, they said, for the last 80 years. But Ford specifically was a dying breed, and they were just a manufacturer of brands that lost their basically identity along the way. And what was funny is he said he landed in Detroit and they picked him up in a Range Rover. He's like, note to self, right? Kind of weird, right? The Ford he's picking me up in a Range Rover. So he goes to their facilities in Dearborn, the home of the Ford Motor Company. That's their national headquarters or the global headquarters. And they drive him down into the parking lot where the Range Rover is going to park, and not one of the executives had a Ford vehicle, right? Note to self, this is weird. I'm in a garage, the Ford Motor Company, their global headquarters, not one of them have a Ford vehicle. So kind of fast forward in the story, he found out, right, when he came on board, well, not found out, I'm sure he knew it beforehand, but that Ford that year was going to lose $17 billion. And he's like, oh, wow, what a grim forecast, right? And then a quarter later, they actually did lose that $17 billion. They lost $17 billion. And so he had to come up with a game plan of how they were going to restructure themselves, how they were going to basically reestablish themselves without taking a government bailout. If somebody came to me like right now, $17 billion, like how would you not go into a reorganization and bankruptcy court and get a bailout federally from the government? He chose, he's like, hey, we're not gonna take the bailout, and this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna sell off all the ancillary brands of Ford Motor Company. We're gonna reestablish ourselves. We're gonna get an idea of what the consumer wants, and we're gonna bring that in-house, which happened to be they wanted a fuel-efficient vehicle with all the technology that a high-end vehicle has into a vehicle, and they wanted low emissions, were kind of the three what basically the consumers were saying and what the government wanted. So anyways, he just said, hey, look, we're going to sell off all of our brands. We're going to divest, and we're going to raise seed capital. Essentially, we're going to get a loan. And so he went to the board of directors and said, hey, how are we going to do it? They built out a plan, and they went to the Waldorf Astoria in New York City and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is our plan. They raised $26 billion in capital, including essentially collateralizing the Ford logo. So that was one thing they essentially had to give up in that loan package. And now you have Ford, what it is today, right? Ford never took the federal out package, and they actually, I believe they netted dropped to the bottom line last year $10 billion. Alan Mulally was with them, I think, from 2010 to 2014. But like, so I say all this to get back to, you can understand like $17 billion. I feel like that's a big number to anybody. Like, but the automotive industry, that's a big number, right? And so going through all this political, I know we've been beating each other up. I always want to end things with hope, because, dude, that's a story of hope, right? If you're $17 billion in the hole and you're like, how am I going to get out of this?
That's a savage one there. That's savage.
You come up with a game plan, and you literally take the action of like, hey, this is the game plan, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to move forward with it. So anyways, I just wanted, like, that's the level of hope, right? We might be trillions of dollars in debt. We're going to have to make a decision on who the next president is. Let's get educated. Let's make a plan for our own life and how we're going to be the proponent of change, because Alan Mulally was the proponent of change, right? He's like, look, I'm going to take over a dying organization and create that change. But it was up to him to create the vision and then the belief in the people that, hey, we're gonna ultimately change for the good. And that's ultimately, we can't rely on the president of the United States, right? And
I've always said that. You guys, the ball's in your court. That is the truest thing ever. Like, you're in charge of your success. Trump or Biden or Obama or Bush or whoever else came. I mean, dude, you determine your own results. You might get taxed $1,000 more here or $1,000 less there or whatever, but like, come on, it's on you. It's on you. And that's the way I've always kind of looked at it, which I'm glad that I kind of didn't look at certain statistics, because whether Obama or what is his name, Joe Biden wins or Donald Trump wins, I'm telling you, I'll document it right now. I'm going to make it anyway. I sent you a picture of 13 years ago, me performing at Six Flags with my old band. Dude, I was broke. I was sleeping on people's floors, scraping to eat. I mean, 13 years ago, that's just something I had a picture of. I've been doing this kind of entertainment, whatever, dream for 20 years since I was, a teenager. And I made it work because I was willing to put in the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Plain and simple, dude. I wasn't taking no for an answer.
No,
I don't even think we got paid to play at Six Flags. It was like a big deal to play at Six Flags back in the day. Yeah. So, I'd encourage people to think about, what am I going to do to win? Because it's on you. It's all so much opportunity out there. Right. So, dude, it's beautiful. And
beautiful day. Today's going to be a great day.
I was texting you that this morning, getting my mindset right. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful weekend. Reap the harvest. You can watch these replays too on Instagram. I'm popping them up on Instagram right after I'm done.
Thank you for listening in.
Until next.